IVM.
The pill, the birth control pill, the research and development for which was driven by an American woman, Margaret Sanger. The pill is considered to be the century's most revolutionary medical breakthrough after penicillin. But what's that got to do with the Constitution of India? Hello and welcome to the show, The Longest Constitution. My name is Priya Mirza, and this season is about work. How getting to work, holding on to work is shaped by gender, caste, and ability. We are looking at adults and adulting and how having a child is an admitted obstruction to work. So, motherhood. Yes, great, wonderful, divine, sacred, blah, 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 blah. Affects and shapes life and livelihood, choices and consequences. So we remember Nargish Mirza, isn't it? We heard about her in the first episode. The air hostess who worked for Air India, the government airlines corporation, which made discriminatory rules for women's retirement conditions, where their work would be terminated if they became pregnant, when they turned 35, or when they married. So, pregnancy, age, and marriage. Three broad arbitrary grounds to fire women. For a woman, clearly, her womb precedes her. Oh, there's a baby on its way? Then you should be on your way home. And when this was challenged in the Supreme Court, these regulations were struck down in 1981. But not before making some stereotypes about women. That women should be given time off to reproduce, not to go on a holiday. And it helps in the promotion and boosting up of our family planning program. Our family planning program? Oh, right, the state's family planning program. So, mothering means work, unpaid work, and therefore, mothers should not be doing other kind of work, the paid kind, which brings us to contraceptives and regulating childbirth, either by preventing conception or terminating the pregnancy. So, is it legal to have an abortion in India? Yes, it is. So, in India, abortion has been legal since the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. But was this act concerned about women? Was this law actually passed so that women can choose when to have a child? No. They were concerned about population control. As we will see, the motherhood penalty occurs even before a woman becomes a mother. And the woman's body is forever being probed, questioned, investigated, and regulated. So, what's this MTP all about? The MTP Act legalizes abortion. Up to the third trimester, that's about 20 weeks. But under the law, the choice of aborting a fetus was the absolute discretion of the medical board. Yeah, the medical opinion, absolute. Not the mother, the doctor would decide. So, under the MTP Act, a fetus can be terminated if and only if there is a risk to the mother or the fetus has abnormalities. Most importantly, the law specifies that no pregnancy can be terminated except with the consent of the pregnant woman. But the right to when and whether to have a child was denied to women. Today's first story represents an overlap we have been building up to this point: gender and disability. Suchita Srivastava, a young woman, was an orphan, mentally retarded. Her mental age was that of a 9-year-old, and was found to be pregnant. When her pregnancy was discovered, the Chandigarh administration filed for a medical board to examine the termination of her pregnancy. And with that, we get back to the issue of disability, the rights, autonomy, and agency and assertion of the disabled. In the previous episode, we saw the case of Surendra Mohan, where a man with 70% blindness was not allowed to be a civil judge. Justice is blind, but can a judge be blind? The Supreme Court thought otherwise, and that was a questionable decision. And we've also looked at the Pwd Act 1995. So in 2016, the law was expanded to include 21 disabilities, including dwarfism, muscular dystrophy, acid attack victims, speech and language disabilities, blood disorders such as hemophilia, thalassemia, and sickle cell anemia, as well as an increase in reservations from 3 to 4% in public sector jobs. The law also defined a benchmark disability. Okay, that's good. Though, despite the law being around, Surendra Mohan was denied a position as a civil judge in 2019. And with that, let's get back to the great Indian fight, the UPSC. Our second story today is to do with a young man who had a disability, but which was not recognized by the 2016 Act. Vikas Kumar had writer's cramp. So, writer's cramp is a disability and a neurological movement disorder marked by involuntary excessive muscle contractions, and clearly incapacitated him from writing an exam like the UPSC. So Vikas petitioned the UPSC for a scribe for the exam. And with that, we get back to Suchita. In Suchita Srivastava versus Chandigarh Administration 2009, the court held that Article 21 of the Indian Constitution guarantees and protects the right of reproductive choices of women. The court recognized Suchita's right to carry the baby to a full term and following the Mtp Act, unless there was a substantial risk to the fetus or mother, and abortion could not be recommended. Plus, the court recognized that reproductive autonomy includes, now hear this out, the right to refuse participation in sexual activity, to insist on the use of contraceptive methods, thank you Margaret Sanger, to adopt birth control measures, to carry a pregnancy to its full term and raise children, or most importantly, seek abortion. The court said it is important to recognize that reproductive choices can be exercised to procreate as well as to abstain from procreating. The crucial consideration is that a woman's right to privacy, dignity, and bodily integrity should be respected. Dignity, people, dignity. We remember Neera Mathur, don't we? Whose employers asked her as a woman questions about menstruation, pregnancy, abortion, and childbirth. How come men aren't asked when they last had an erection? Just saying, yeah, autonomy, liberty, and dignity. Our last story today is about autonomy and consent within a marriage. And I should add that the marital rape exemption is being discussed in the Supreme Court right now. But when it comes to reproductive rights, are those rights any less if a woman is married? So, 30 lakhs. 30 lakhs is what a husband demanded as compensation when his wife terminated her pregnancy without his consent. He complained that this was unethical and caused him much mental pain and anguish. Incidentally, termination of pregnancy without a woman's consent is a non-bailable offense under Section 313 of the IPC. But in Anil Kumar Malhotra versus Ajay Pasricha 2017, the Supreme Court dismissed the suit for damages filed by this husband against his wife and doctors for terminating his wife's pregnancy, and further expanded women's reproductive rights flowing from the Constitution. The court said, if the wife has consented to matrimonial sex and created sexual relations with her own husband, it does not mean that she has consented to conceive a child. It is the free will of the wife to give birth to a child or not. The husband cannot compel her to conceive and give birth to his child. By the way, it's her child as well. But anyway, finally, a woman is not a machine in which raw material is put and a finished product comes out. Yep, that's right. We aren't machines. Women have feelings. They aren't Alexa. But babies, by the way, are not really finished products. Bums have to be cleaned, mouths have to be wiped, and nappies have to be changed. So what happened to Vikas Kumar? In Vikas Kumar versus UPSC 2021, a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court overturned the previous judgment on Surendra Mohan and noted that the 21 benchmark disabilities relates to reservations but not to accommodation. And to accommodate the disabled, we have to rethink the ableist world we live in. For example, having stairs everywhere and not ramps. The court observed that reasonable accommodation is the way ahead, and Vikas Kumar was in fact given a scribe to write his exams. Hurrah! That's good. So, just to wrap up, work so fundamental to life is in fact shaped by our biological bodies. In the next episode, we will look at amendments to the Mtp Act and much more. Till then, I'm your host Priya Mirza signing out.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton speaks to psychiatrist and podcaster Dr. Fred Moss. They discuss ways to deal with discomfort and boredom. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita give us key highlights from the 2022 budget and discuss the success of audioware company Boat. On The Longest Constitution, Priya takes a look at how courts interpret cases of color blindness and maternity relief at the workplace. On Press Decode, Sarah Bhakta and Prafula talk about China's media censorship and Bharat Pay's infamous co-founder Ashneer Grover. And on Pulyabazi, the hosts discuss how much the government spends on defense in their special series Ek Sawal Kahi Jawab. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any other platforms that you're listening to us, whether it's a rating, whether it's a review, it all helps. And do remember to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, I would like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and HDFC Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
सफर, रास्ते, मंजिल और मुकाम अक्सर ये हमसे कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, पर हम हैं कि अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इन्हें सुनने से कतराते हैं। नमस्ते दोस्तों, मेरा नाम है केशव चतुर्वेदी और मैं आपको ले चलूंगा कुछ ऐसे सफर पर जहां आपको एक नया नजरिया मिलेगा सफर और मंजिलों को देखने का। आइए इन किस्से कहानियों में डूब जाएं। हर मंगलवार और शुक्रवार